The problem that we're trying to solve in this video is to figure out why we're getting this distortion and how to fix it. It is an exact copy of this side over here, which was created with a brushstroke and world space, so we know there is a clean source alpha here that has somehow not landed in the way that it's supposed to land over here. And the reason for that is because there's distortion in the UVs, and it doesn't really matter what the distortion is over here because we applied it with a brush stroke. There certainly is distortion on this one as well. But when we try to transfer this one's unique distortion to other places, it doesn't work. So we are going to take a look at the UVs here to try to address the issue. I'm just going to hop into the UV editor. And these are our areas of interest here. So I'm just going to scoot them over into this area and make them larger so that when I turn on the grid view, we can see this should look like a nice perfect grid, and it's all warbly, and that warble appears in all of them. And the reason there's a warble there is because I was asking a little bit too much of these insets. At the time, I didn't know what I was going to do with it, and it turns out that I need a little bit more fidelity in here than what I'm getting. So the reason that that warble existed is, it's trying to resolve the various pressures that these edges are getting from being pulled on by these other edges. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to relieve that pressure by separating the inside shell from the walls. So we can just cut it. I'll scoot all of these over here. And as soon as I optimize it, we can hit it unfold and optimize. You see how much difference there is there. It's very, very significant. And I'm going to want to make sure that all of these are vertical, because it is certainly possible to rotate. Whoops, I want to unpin it. To rotate the mask stuff that we're going to be moving around. But it's kind of a pain because the transform center is the center of the object. And there may be a way that you can center it over where the actual alpha is, but it's just easier to kind of do this. So with these, let me go to my UVs. With these all selected, now we can do another optimize, and we'll optimize around what that looks like with the vertical center line. We'll do an unpin all, and I'm going to go ahead and repack it. That is going to be in arrange and layout. Go to layout. I will hold shift and left click to get to the options here, because I just imported this into a new Maya file. We want to move the shells. We want to preserve the 3D ratio so it'll rescale everything. Jump into object mode just in case. And there we go. So if I want, I could actually grab these now that they've been packed. Oh, I need to make sure I didn't have the other stuff selected. So let me go ahead and make sure I have all of these items here being calculated in my packing operation. So we can just go ahead and hit layout there. Okay, so now we've got all the rest of that stuff where it needs to be. And I want to make sure that I come in and grab these. This is just because I know that area has a little bit more going on, and I've got so much empty space. Let's see, where are the other ones? I think I'm missing a couple. There's one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Nope, that's all of them. So I'm just going to scoot these over and make them a little bigger. And this is just so they've got a little extra texture resolution in them. And then we just have to find a place for them to live over here. And so by scaling them all with the sort of the global scale of the asset, and then increasing the size, they should all still have the same relative textile density. So I'm going to go ahead and close that. And there's one more thing I want to do. I have been a little bit bugged throughout the project by how sharp this edge is. So I think I'm going to throw a bevel on there just to kind of soften it up and get a little bit of a more accurate bake. And it's a very simple process. Select those edges, and because there's no triangles on those edges, this makes it a little bit easier. There's also not a texture border. Actually, I think there is a texture border, but it doesn't matter. It preserves the border. So we'll go to Edit Mesh, Bevel, go to the options. I might hit Apply. And when I do that, I get this little poly bevel thing here, and all I need to do is, I want that to be a little bit wider, so I'm going to go to the fraction, and I'm just going to double it to 1. And because it's all got history on it, that's going to be fine. If I wanted to, I could come over to the, where is it, gun low. I now have my poly input bevel, and I could change my fraction to 2. If I wanted to make it bigger, it's got this history note on it, which is very convenient. I don't actually want there to be any history on this, so I'm going to go ahead and say edit delete by type history. And now what I need to do is basically just go in there and fix the edging here, which is all screwed up. So I'm going to go mesh display and soften edge. And I'm getting a little bit of a red flag here. Like, there should not be this gigantic dark shadow there. So I'm going to go ahead and go to Mesh Display, Unlock Normals. So I got to select it first. And you can see now I've got smooth edges and unlock normals. So that's going to be better looking on that front. And then I just need to hop back in and take a quick look, because I happen to know that when you bevel stuff, you're going to get a bunch of broken edges. It's very, very easy to fix because these things are welded on the geo. We can just go through and grab them all. And then go to merge. And they will all merge very happily. And then I'll just go to my optimize. It's got some issue, we'll fix it. And you can see now everybody's got a nice even strip there, and there should be enough geometry to capture whatever's going on there with the bake. And finally, back to the UV editor. We'll go to edge mode, select the edges, go to texture borders, and go to mesh display. Oops, where am I? Mesh display, harden edge. Go ahead and delete the history on it, delete by type history, select all of the geometry. Let's make sure there aren't any weird overlaps here. That feels pretty reasonable. File, export selection. I'm going to export this as gunload temp. You can export yours over your old geo. Alright, so let's go ahead and import that updated geometry. So we'll go to Edit, Project Configuration, gunload temp. And you can see the interior space here is all screwed up now. That's completely fine. Let's go to texture set settings. We're going to bake our mesh maps with this updated low poly. We've got the gun high vents.obj and our ID is turned off. So let's go ahead and take care of that. Alright, and if I turn on my IDs, what you can see is it's not the same. I'm not sure why we're getting this happening there. But anyway, we need to go ahead and rebake our IDs as well. Most of this stuff is unmodified and looks just fine. That's interesting. So let's just go ahead and do that. So we'll disable these. Turn on ID, we'll remove this and grab gun high FBX. We'll go ahead and bake this. And now we can see the weirdness with this little aimers up front is fine, and then this is all looking good too. And when we do that, we get a nice boundary here. It is still a little bit of a hard surf or hard corner there, but I don't know, maybe I can talk myself into believing that it's not as noticeable as it once was. So let's hop over to the 2D, 3D view so we can kind of see what's happening. And what I want to do is grab one of these fills, zoom out a bit, and we'll just toggle the visibility. Okay, so it's that one. And we can just move this fill. Let's try to find, there we are. And as we can see with great happiness, there is no distortion. So that worked. You can't move it in the 3D view, you can only move it in the 2D view. So that worked pretty well there. We can take a look at this fill. And I don't know, figure out which one is down there. That looks like it was a happy guess. Get it kind of scooted in. And that is the process if you want to do this kind of thing, where you're reusing an existing mask and you move it into another part of the geometry where you have some distortions that you need to address. That's a pretty simple process. Just go into the low poly, and you can make whatever changes you want in low poly. I could kind of do whatever I want as long as I don't significantly deviate from the high poly. Everything that I do, every brush stroke, every procedural damage or whatever, all the material IDs will be reapplied to the updated geometry. And if you've got more texture resolution in certain areas, then you will have more texture resolution applied to that spot in your mesh, and that can be a real benefit. So I think what I'm going to do now is, there's one other thing that's worth mentioning. If I didn't really care about what was going on this surface here, I could also in Maya have just stacked all of the UVs in this one space, and they would be applied. That thing would automatically show up everywhere without having to do any of this. So if that's all you're looking for, then you don't have to mess around with these anchor points and moving things around in 2D space. You can just stack your UVs and call it a day. But everything is going to be identical in that case, which is also, everything's going to be identical here as well, but we just get this nice background here. So it is your call. Whatever makes the most sense for your model, you can go ahead and follow that course of action. So what I'm going to do now is I've kind of covered everything that I wanted to talk about, and I still have some work on this that I feel like I want to do. So I'm going to just play with it, and then the final video, I'll just walk you through whatever it is I decided to do, and we will call it a day.